Okay. Shabbat Shalom. There is many um, ideas and subjects in our Parasha, in the Torah. The closest you get to the end, the more mitzvot there is. Moshe giving the Jewish people a lot of stuff, a lot of materials, many mitzvot. Yes, true. So first mitzvah is in our parasha, and this is the name of the parasha, is judges. Judges. What? To have in every city court that will rule and will force the rule. So there is two parts in the mitzvah of judges, that in Hebrew it's called Shoftim, and this is the name in our parasha. The first part is to have the judges. The second part is to have the officers that will execute the ruling. Of course, every ruling should be according to two two people that saw the thing and testifiers, yeah, witnesses. And of course there is differences between ruling that connected to economics or to death, life and death matters, or so on and so forth. This is the first part in our parsha. After that we have again really encouraging the Jewish people not to worship idols before entering the land of Israel, because Canaan, the land of Israel, was in that time soaked with idol worshippers, and it was very strong. And the details that in our parasha is not to do the same things that they doing. So in last week parasha we learned about the law not to scratch your head and forehead with grief, and this is act of what idol worshippers did in that time. So in our parasha is more spiritual acts that they did, like asking spirits and talking with angels and so on and so forth, that they did those rituals. So the Torah said not to participate in any of those actions. The third mitzvah in our parsha is crowning a king. The Jewish nation needs to have king. This is a mitzvah from the Torah. This subject is very interesting. Why the Jewish people needs king? And it's interesting because in the book, when the Jewish people came to the land of Israel, they didn't have a king for 400 years. So why they did not do this mitzvah? Not only that, when the Jewish people asked from Shmuel the prophet that they want a king, God was angry. Why they want a king? So from one hand we have a mitzvah to have a king. From the second hand, it's not it depends what kind of a king do you want. This is the point. So it's very interesting. But in our parasha, the Torah setting the direction of the king. The king shouldn't have many wives, and shouldn't have money without any limit, should not have so many horses, and the king should write his own book of Torah that will stay with him always. That he should have his ego will not be so big. And actually the Rambam in his book of laws explaining that the king will be talking in length how the king should be very strong from outside. The king should not do haircut before the people. This is a law of the Torah, for example. or he should speak to every person that approaching to him with his own name. Even though it's a prophet, is the high priest coming to the king, he will call him by his name. Why? To put his fear in the hearts of the people. But the Rambam, after explaining that, is saying, but this is only from the outside. From the inside, the king is the heart of the nation. And the king should always feel how he's representing, he's the connection between the Jews and God. So his heart should be empty. Should be only to force everyone to worship God, to connect everyone to God. And this is the combination of the Jewish king. And it's a very interesting subject. And I would say a little bit, a small episode from the Tanakh, from the book of Judges. No, the book of Shmuel. Book of Shmuel telling us David was the second king of the Jewish. King David was a king of all the Jewish nation. After that was Shlomo. King Solomon was the king of all the Jewish nation. What was after King Solomon? King Solomon passed away. King Solomon was a king that in his time, it was time of peace, time of great wealth, time of building the first temple. Very amazing time. But King Solomon was forcing the nation very much to participate in the building of the temple. First of all, in their bodies, they should work. Many of the people worked in building of the temple of Jerusalem. Second thing was high taxes. High taxes because they needed money. And when King Solomon passed away, very big group of the Jewish people came to one of his sons. His name was Rechavam, if I'm not mistaken, and asked him, please be our king, but we would crown you to a king if you would lower the taxes, because it's very hard on the people. He said, okay, give me 3 days to think about it. He went to consult with two groups of people. The first group was elderly people, friends of his father, the leaders of the Jewish nation that were very strong allies of his father. He came to them and asked them, should I lower the taxes and be the king? They told him a sentence that's going like that: you would be slave you should be slave for the people now, and they will be slaves for you after. Slave is not the best word. The better word is servant. You would be servant of the people right now, and they will serve you after. He heard that, and then he came to his friends, the younger generation, friends that he grew up with, and asked them, what should I do? They told him no. Told them you would not surrender to their demands, and that will be the start points of your kingship. You should tell them, my father increased the taxes, I will increase more. I would be more harsh than my father. And that's what he chose to do, like his friends. And then Jewish people did not crown him as a king. Only the tribe of Judea, Yehuda, and Binyamin crowned him. And from that, the Jewish people split to two kingdoms: the kingdom of Yehuda and the kingdom of Israel. 10 tribes was crowned a different king. And in the end, that led for the exile of the 10 tribes and destruction of the first temple, and the rest is history. So it's just an episode to show what was the meaning of the advice that the elderly people gave him. Not to serve the people from a lower point, and then they will give you back. It's not a question of tactics. It's a deeper question. They told him, you should realize that your position is not of a ruler, is a position of a servant. You're serving the people. If you will understand that, they will serve you, because they will understand that you only there for them to connect them with God. If you will not understand that, you will not be, people will not follow you, because you have nothing to give them. And they told them the opposite. You should start from a place that I am. They told them, his friends, the sentence, the expression was, my smaller finger is thicker than my father's thighs. How you say? Yeah. I am bigger. I'm much bigger than my father. And this is not the purpose of the Jewish king. Okay, that was, by the way, interesting story that we're understanding a little bit what is a king. King is a servant. Okay, and of course it's all public servant. Public, yeah. After that, we have in the Torah the story of the tribe of Levi. Again, that the Torah telling us that they not have their own piece of land in Israel. And the Torah reminding us and giving us few mitzvot that and few gifts that we're giving to the Levites, to the priests. We have Reshit Agez. This is interesting law that we're doing until today, that connected to the firstborn animal in the field, and so on. After that, we have laws connected to prophets. The Torah said that in every generation, or after Moshe, also would be more and more prophets, because God's words need to come today. Very interesting subject for itself. Who can be a prophet if there is prophets today, and so on. After that, we have another law that we learned also. It's the law of cities of exile, or cities that, how we can call it, refugee. Okay. What is the details of that law? I want to talk about it for 1 minute, because maybe we will go back to that. There is in the land of Israel three cities that they are the cities of refugees. Also outside Israel, there is 3 cities that they are the cities of refugees, but they are not outside the territory of the promised land. They are outside the Jordan River, but they are in the piece of lands that the 3 tribes, Reuven, Gad, and Menashe, got in outside the Jordan River. So we had 6 cities of refugees, Arei Miklat, that they all only in Israel. Arei Miklat, there is only in Israel. What are the Arei Miklat? What are those cities? As we spoke, a person that kills someone by mistake, he can run there and wait until the death of the high priests, and then he can go out. If he's going out before, a relative of the dying person can catch him and do with him judgment. Okay, after the Torah telling us also in our Parasha that when Mashiach will come, we will add another 3 cities. Okay. After that, there is another 2 interesting laws connected to war. For every war that we're starting, we should not start with war. We should start with peace. If they not agree to do peace, and we must do war with them, we should go to war. And the last law is connected to when you're finding a dead person between cities and you don't know which, the laws of Egla Arufa. No one knows why he passed away. No one can take responsibility. So all the elderly, the leaders of the cities, coming to the closest river and doing some ceremony to say that they were not connected to this, to the death of this person. Okay. It was interesting laws, so I was going through all the laws in general that we have in our Parsha. Now, we are in the month of Elul. The month of Elul is very, very interesting month, very important month, the last month in the Jewish calendar. This month, the history of this month is that from the first day of Elul until Yom Kippur, it's 40 days. 40 days, those 40 days were the last 40 days that Moshe was in the mountain of Sinai praying for the Jewish nation, and in the last day in Yom Kippur, God told Moshe, I've forgiven the Jewish people. And this is how we have Yom Kippur, Day of Forgiveness. So those days from that on was days of asking God to forgive us. Now, in the world, in the Orthodox world, outside Hasidut, there is 1 month of Elul. Inside Hasidut is a total different month of Elul. What is the difference between those two? There is a very famous tradition in the yeshivot of non-Hasidim, of the Misnagdim, of the Litvaks, that in the beginning of the beginning of the learning in the yeshivot, in the yeshiva, in all the world, is in the beginning of Elul. Not waiting to September, to whatever. We're starting the new year learning in the beginning of month of Elul. How the learning starts in outside the Hasidic world, in the Litvaks, with a screaming. What is the screaming? Elul! This is the screaming. Elul! What is the meaning of that screaming? Elul is a month of fear. Is a month of preparation to the court. A person that knows that in 30 days he will go to the finest and purest court that there is, and there will see the judge, and the judge is not convinced with, of course, not bribery and not nice faces. He is only convinced of action, of heart and action. I mean, where your hearts belong and what you're doing about it. So this is the court of Rosh Hashanah, that in the Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the year, that will be in few weeks, God will sit and decide what we deserve to get in the next year. So this feeling is terrifying if you think about it. And if not terrifying, it's that they need to, everybody need to prepare himself to the court, to the judge. This is outside Hasidut. Inside Hasidut, it's totally the opposite. There is a famous joke that one Litvak, not Hasid, came to the synagogue in the beginning of Elul, and he starts praying, and he crying, and he see the Hasid coming to pray, and he start dancing, the Hasid. Day after, the Litvak crying, and the Hasid dancing. Day after, the third day of Elul, the Litvak crying, and the Hasid dancing in the prayer. And the Litvak telling the Hasid, I cannot understand. I thought you're not inside the environment of Elul, but now it's Elul. How are you dancing every day in the prayer? You're not afraid from the court? From Rosh Hashanah? So the Hasid said, why would I be afraid? My father is the judge. So it's a different approach. But the approach is not only in statements, it also have a very, very deep meaning. So I think to understand the Elul, we need to talk a little bit about Rosh Hashanah. And of course, everything is connected to our Parasha. Rosh Hashanah, as I said, is the day of judgment. The judgment starts in Rosh Hashanah and finishes after 10 days in Yom Kippur. God forgiving everyone. But the Rosh Hashanah is the 6th day of creation. Creation started in 25 of Elul. And Rosh Hashanah was the 6th day of creation. What happened in the 6th day of creation? Why are we celebrating Rosh Hashanah in the 6th day of creation? Because in that day was created Adam. Adam and Eve was created in the 6th day of creation. So Rosh Hashanah is the birthday of human being. So what? Why are we celebrating that then? Because Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, did something very special. They crowned Hashem. They told the first creations that said God is the king, we are servants of God, was Adam. When he said it in the 6th day of creation. In Shir Shel Yom, in the song of the day that we sing every day, the song of Friday is Hashem Malach. God is king. Why are we saying this? Because that's what Adam said when he was created. So what we celebrating every year is recrowning God as a king. This is what we're celebrating in Rosh Hashanah according to Hasidut. And this is the meaning of shofar. What is shofar? If you will ask Litvak, he will tell you, we want to remind God of Akedat Yitzchak. And this is true, of course. Because we want God to forgive us, and we want to remind him how Abraham sacrificed his son. And shofar is the horn of the, how you call this animal? That shofar, it's not a sheep, but yeah, the animal that Abraham sacrificed instead of Yitzchak. So we want to remind God, and this is true, of course. But what is the deeper meaning? When you crowning a king, you blowing. And this is what we're doing. We're crowning God as a king. It's not so simple to crown the king. But this is what we're doing. When you're crowning a king, you should be happy. Of course, it's a day of happiness. But you cannot crown the king and do whatever you want. If you crowning the king, it means that you're accepting upon yourself all the laws of the new king. And this is the month of Elul. The month of Elul is the time that we're telling ourselves the king, the new king, of course, is the old king, but he re-crowning himself, and we crowning him as a king in 30 days. And that's why we should take upon ourselves to do whatever he wants, because we want him to be our king. And this is the month of Elul. The month of Elul is time of happiness, but of seriousness, because we want that he would want to be our king. It's both sides. If we see that we are serious, so he wants to be our king. And now we're coming to the famous analogy of the Alter Rebbe about the month of Elul, revolutionary analogy. The Alter Rebbe said that in the month of Elul is like the king in the field. What is the king in the field? The king, from time to time, for some reason, is going outside from the capital city, traveling around the country. When he travels, he not always wearing his own clothes, and probably most of the time he's not sitting with a crown and with sticks and with a clock. He's going to the carriage, or how you call it, and he's sitting there with some comfortable suit, and then he going on the way. He's going through fields, and the workers, some of them taking their heads up and seeing the king, some of them not seeing the king, because it's so natural that some carriage is going there. So if you, worker, taking your head up and see the king, and you approaching the king, and of course the king is in a good mood, he's outside, the windows are open, the wind, and he is between the fields. So he opening the windows and he start talking with the common people. And this is opportunity to the people to ask whatever they want from the king. From the one hand, you're approaching the carriage, you're talking with the king, and the king answers you. You did not bow, you did not went to all the security, you did not saw the capital city and the palace and the beautiful rooms, and then saw the king from far. No, you went straight to the king. From the other hand, so from one hand it's very special because you saw the king as he is. From the other hand, what is the powerful effect of a king? Powerful effect of a king is after taking the appointment and waiting for half a year, and then you're going to the capital city and you see all the buildings and all the walls, and you're going inside the palace and you see all the rooms and the servants and the army and all the ministers, and then going through all the halls. This opening the heart of the servant of the common citizen, because this is a once in a lifetime that this thing is amazing. And then he see the king, so of course he amazed. So maybe 90% of the effect on the person is all the surroundings of the king. So maybe the effect is not so strong as going and meeting the king in the palace. And this is exactly the month of Elul. From one hand, you can approach the king. From the other hand, it's not affecting you. Going to the king in the palace, this is holiday. Holiday, you wearing your best clothes, you're going to the synagogue, you're hearing the shofar, you praying all day in Yom Kippur, you going through all the capital city until the king. And then it's impact to you, wow. But when you're meeting the king, you're afraid to speak. You're so excited, and the king is so far. But when in the month of Elul, you direct to the king. But some people, you will tell them, hey, this is the king. They will say, this is the king. Okay. Not so interesting. And this is exactly the point that we are in. The king, from one hand, is here. From the other hand, is in field clothes. So we need to... This is the analogy. What is the other side? How we explain it in real life? In holidays, we can feel very close to the king. And this is the goal. That we will blow the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, we will feel that now God is renewing His will to give life to the world, to give life to the people, to everything, new energy and everything new. And this is only because the Jewish people do what He asked them to do, to blow the shofar. This is amazing and very important time of the year, and this is amazing feeling. It's like going to the king when he's in his palace, crowning the king. But in the month of Elul, we cannot feel this feeling. We feeling only simple feeling that we approaching the king when he is in the field. What is that meaning in real life? It's meaning that we thinking and deciding to take upon ourselves to do whatever the new king will ask us to do. We're deciding, let's do it. Let's do it next year. Let's start from today, of course. This is in Hebrew called Kabbalat Ol. Take upon yourself the new king, the new rules. This means, this is the meaning of approaching the king in the field. Meaning, I connected to the king, I will do whatever he wants. How it's connected to our parasha. So of course, before, this is of course with happiness. It's not with sadness. It's not connected to sadness. Okay. In our parasha, there is two laws. There is the laws of the cities of refugees. And there is the laws of judges and officers. Those cities of refugees and judges and officers representing two ways to do tshuva. Of course, the month of Elul is month of tshuva. Why? Because we want to prepare ourselves to crowning the king. So how we do tshuva? There is two ways. Cities of refugees was, as I said, 3 in the land of Israel itself, between the Jordan River to the sea. And another 3 cities were outside the Jordan River, but also in the land of Israel. There is no refugees cities outside the land of Israel. This is law. Cannot be. But judges and officers can be all over the world. When a person killed someone by mistake, God forbid, in outside Israel, he can, of course, run to the city of refugees inside Israel. It's not a problem. What we can learn from that? There is 2 kinds of tshuva. There is kinds of tshuva that you're going from outside Israel to inside Israel. Why the cities of refugees existed only in Israel? Because the land of Israel represents closeness to God, represents will. A land of Israel, called in Hebrew, Eretz Israel. What is Eretz? Eretz from the word Ratzon. Ratzon is will. A person outside Israel represents a person outside the will. He doesn't have the will. And he did a mistake. He killed someone by mistake. If he have the will now, he running inside Israel, it's perfect. The cities will catch him and guard him. Meaning, there is a tshuva that means that you have the will. You're renewing the will to do what God wants. What does that mean, the will? So tshuva is have 2 sides. Tshuva is to regret what you did and to take upon yourself to do only good. So depends what it can be, that the side of regretting is more strong than the side of taking upon yourself to do good things. But the tshuva of the cities that the cities represent is tshuva of will, goodwill. I'm renewing, I revealing the will inside, the desire inside to stay connected to God. This is the tshuva. I feeling that this bad mistake that I did is disconnecting me from good life, from life of happiness, of staying connected to God. So I'm running inside Israel. I'm saying, no, I don't want this life. I want to be connected to God. And this is tshuva that represents by the cities of refugees, that they are inside Israel. And that's why a person also from outside can run to these cities, because also a person that in daily life doesn't have the will can take upon himself the will, the desire to be connected to God. Judges and officers represent a different kind of tshuva. Judges cannot judge with staying disconnected from the person that they are judging. For example, there is a story that, as you know, the rabbis would take a private audience with Hasidim. And what the Hasidim spoke with the rabbis, one asking for blessing for that, one asking for blessing for that, business, health, happiness, so on. And of course, many of them, or all of them, also asked of way to do tshuva on things that they did. If someone did this, someone did something bad, and he regretted, and they asking the Rabbi what to do in order to become closer again to God. There is a story about one of the rabbis that in the middle of the night that he getting all the Hasidim in private audience, he's stopping and said, I need a pause. And after half an hour, he's calling the last person that was, and he finishing the private audience. His son, the son of the Rabbi, asking his father, what was the story there? Why did you stop? And he said, I will tell you what. A person that asked me of a way to do tshuva on this and that sin. Of course, I did not did this sin. But in order to give him a way to go back, I need to find in myself this sin. Of course, not in his level, because if I had this level, I was not a Rebbe. So, not in his level, but in my level. A person that say that he not believing in God. So the Rabbi need to find himself a place that in the smallest amount, or he killed someone. You know, if a person told you that he killed someone, God forbid, of course, but if you laugh on another person, so it's in a small way, it's the same thing according to the Jewish law. To laugh on someone and he is ashamed, it's have similarity. So we need to find, the Rebbe said, I need to find in myself this sin in a very, very small amount. And came someone to me and he telling me such a sin. I'm waiting 5 minutes. I see I not have connection in any way to this kind of sin. So I need to take a pause and to rethink everything and to do a thorough search until I find something small that maybe can be connected to this, and then I can find a way back to. And this is judge. A judge, when he see two people arguing and he's saying he's right, you're wrong, he cannot say this person wrong, and he cannot be in a different level and rule. This is not a true judge. A true judge can need to feel a little bit of what the wrong person did, and then to give him a way back. The judgment is a way back to the person to be a normal citizen. So this is the second way of tshuva. I'm not revealing in myself the will, and I escaping from where I live to the land of the living, to the land of the people that have the desire to be connected to God. No, it's a different way. I'm searching in myself what I did, and I coming close to the acts that I did, and I correcting them in the details. That was I did not good because I'm not strong in this and that belief, or this and that subject is not it's not understandable until the end in my head, and this is why I fail in this field. So this is a different way of tshuva. It's a way that you doing the search in yourself. You're not running out. And this is two ways of tshuva that we find in our Parashat Shoftim, the beginning of Elul. So we need to remember that tshuva is something that we all must do, because we're going to crown the king. And you cannot crown the king and come the same person that you were last year. We need to think everything, to see what we're lacking, and to correct them as the judges, searching in themselves and then finding a way back. But we also need to remember that we have the cities of will, the cities of everyone that discovering the will, the desire to be connected again to God, can run into the cities and be safe. And what are those cities? Torah. Torah is the city that keeping us safe. So we need to have those two sides, to search inside us and also to reveal in ourselves the desire to be connected to God, to be more close to Him. And this is the best preparation to the day of, in the world, Rosh Hashanah called the day of judgment. In Chassidut it's called the day of crowning. Day of crowning. It's an all different approach, not to be ready to the court, to be ready to get the king with all his clothes, to renew his will, his desire to be king of the world. I think the point is understandable. Thank you very much.